Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Public safety and infrastructure are top priorities in San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria's proposed budget. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The new fiscal year starts in July, and today Gloria highlighted how he plans to allocate over $5 billion. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado has a look.
Mayor Todd Gloria released the spending plans for California's second largest city on Friday. This year's theme, getting it done.
My $5.12 billion Getting It Done plan reflects our city's top priorities of solving homelessness, fixing our streets and upgrading critical infrastructure, improving overall quality of life of city facilities and services.
First, he addressed homelessness, bolstered by over $30 million of state funding and a new program, increasing the overall spending to address the crisis to over $80 million.
This budget adds $24.5 million in ongoing spending to maintain and operate the shelter capacity that we've added, and dedicates another $5 million to further shelter expansion. This includes the operation of a safe sleeping program.
His budget allocates almost $140 million to infrastructure. It includes over $7 million for park improvements, but most of it is for roads.
That investment will allow us to resurface 157 miles of roads throughout the city of San Diego. For context, 157 miles is the distance from here to the Arizona border.
But the biggest investments, they will go to public safety.
Keeping our communities safe is job number one for any city government.
Most of that money to help offset overtime to the tune of almost $25 million for police and fire. This includes new positions for civilians in the police department to help free up officers for patrol. And the department will also get over $4 million in opioid settlement funds.
21 more civilian positions to augment our sworn staffing to help us be more effective and efficient.
The fire department's lifeguard division will get funding for 2 new lifeguards for La Jolla Shores and funding for a 10-week lifeguard academy.
It not only puts more lifeguards on the beach, but it also accounts for a national lifeguard shortage. It has personnel to hire and recruit so we can counteract that.
The budget includes adding $6.8 million to the reserves.
It recognizes the potential for an economic slowdown in the next couple of years.
The mayor's budget is already being criticized for spending too much on police and too little on homelessness. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
An ordinance to ban encampments in public places is moving ahead to the full San Diego City Council. But as KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman explains, there are still questions about how it will work and how it's different from laws already on the books.
Dozens of San Diegans spoke for and against a proposed ordinance to ban encampments on public property. In most cases, it would only be enforceable when shelter beds are available, and that's because of a past legal settlement requiring that provision. But it would also outright ban encampments near schools, existing shelters, open spaces, and at a handful of city parks. Reaction from the public was mixed, with some disagreeing and others in support.
Little Italy is under siege by the homeless.
I don't pretend to have the answers to this long-standing complex problem, but surely we can do better than treating our fellow human beings as eyesores.
Every day we have to walk past and walk over people overdosing.
You are failing at your jobs, and you're blaming the unhoused population for your failure.
Your time.
You suck.
Ultimately, members of the council committee voted to send the proposal off to the full council, but without a recommendation and asking for more details about how it would work. Councilmember Kent Lee was the lone no vote. He says shelter capacity needs to increase or else people would just be moved around. City staffers report there's around 1,800 shelter beds right now, and they're working to add more. Lee also says there's already laws on the books that don't allow encampments on public property.
If encampments are banned citywide as it currently stands, what does this ordinance accomplish?
This is, it is providing clarity.
The proposed ordinance comes from Councilmember Stephen Whitburn and has support from the mayor. Whitburn says encampments are currently prohibited under encroachment and illegal lodging laws.
This ordinance simply describes what we want. It takes the issue head on. It says no camping. It's not encroachment. It's not illegal lodging. We're talking about encampments.
Whitburn says this is about public health and safety, with reports of drug use and unsanitary conditions at encampments. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria agrees.
And right now, much of what we see in certain parts of the city are absolutely unacceptable. I won't stand for it. No one should have to stand for it. And anyone who represents that these encampments are safe are not being honest with the general public.
Gloria says the camping ordinance will be brought to full council at the same time as an idea for a new proposed safe campground. That's where unsheltered residents could sleep. He's also proposing more money for additional shelter beds, homeless outreach, and permanent supportive housing. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
7-Eleven staff are playing opera music to keep people from sleeping outside stores in San Diego. Coming up, what homeless advocates are saying about the tactic. Students and others rallied today at Point Loma Nazarene University, protesting against harassment and discrimination of LGBTQ+ people in schools. KPBS education reporter MG Perez takes us there.
The silence on this National Day of Silence is deafening because it isn't silent at all.
We are here, we are queer, and we're not going anywhere.
Lauren Casares is a graduate of Point Loma Nazarene University, a private Christian school. She is voicing support for Melissa Tucker, an adjunct professor who in February was told she would no longer work at the university. She believes it was because of her support of the LGBTQ community. And Dr. Mark Maddox, the dean of the School of Theology and Christian Ministry, who says after publicly disagreeing with what happened to Tucker, he was fired.
I came to a private Christian university because I wanted a world-class education. I wanted a private Christian education, and I got that. Many of us did. We are proud alumni, but we are not proud of what's happening on campus right now.
After graduating in 2019, Casares founded an alumni and allies coalition to support the growing gay community at her alma mater. There are still openly gay students attending classes. That includes Sydney McFadden and Jessica Saavedra White, a same-sex couple scheduled to graduate in less than a month. They say they will not be silent.
We weren't sure how many people were going to show up today and if it was just going to be a few of us. And I told Sydney last night that even if it was just me and her, like, I would stand with her.
There's such great people here on this campus that love so deeply and hardly, and it's one of the most beautiful things, and I just wish that our faculty and our administration could see that as much as the students do.
The university does acknowledge LGBTQ students on campus through a group called Voices of Love. However, that group is not recognized or sanctioned by the university. In a written statement to KPBS News, Laura Fleming, PLNU Director of Communications, said in part, "We value and respect the right of free expression and believe that we can have difficult discussions while still demonstrating care and concern for each other. While we cannot provide specific details on personnel issues, especially with the threat of potential litigation, the decision to suspend Dr. Maddox's employment was independent of anything related to LGBTQIA+. On this National Day of Silence, many other PLNU students also held a sit-in outside the university's chapel this morning in support of the fired professor and dean. But it was the loud voices just off campus that got the most attention when it came to the traditional Christian question, what would Jesus do?
I think through and through, if you look in Scripture, what was really clear that Jesus did all the time was identify with marginalized communities and show through and through that there's room for everyone at the table.
A message heard tonight in silence and out loud. MG Perez, KPBS News.
The Supreme Court says FDA approval of a widely used abortion drug will remain in place for now. The Justice Department and the drugs manufacturer asked justices to intervene on a lower court ruling which would limit access to mifepristone. It would have taken effect tonight, but in an order signed by Justice Samuel Alito today, the court asked both sides to weigh in on the issue, with a decision expected on Wednesday. More than 24 members of Mexico's Sinaloa Cartel are facing charges, including the sons of drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Attorney General Merrick Garland made the announcement in Washington today. Charges include fentanyl trafficking, weapons, and money laundering. Chinese citizens suspected of supplying the chemicals needed to make the drugs were also among those who were charged.
The United States government is using every tool at its disposal to combat the fentanyl epidemic. The PRC government must stop the unchecked flow of fentanyl precursor chemicals that are coming out of China.
A total of 28 defendants were charged in 3 indictments. The man federal agents say is behind a massive intelligence document leak faced a district court judge in Boston today. Prosecutors say Jack Tuhera kept documents containing highly classified information about America's allies and enemies, then shared them online. Gloria Pazmino has more.
The 21-year-old Massachusetts Air National Guardsman arrested in connection with the massive leak of classified documents was charged Friday.
This is about the transmission, both the unlawful retention and the transmission of the documents.
Jack Teixeira is charged with unauthorized retention and transmission of national defense information and unauthorized removal and retention of classified information and defense materials, according to court documents.
Do you want to say anything about the charge here? You talked to your son?
According to a probable cause affidavit, Teixeira has held top secret clearance since 2021. He was assigned to a 24/7 operational mission that gathers information from various sources and compiles it for some of the most senior military leaders around the globe, according to a defense official.
What he does is he's a cyber transport engineer.
Teixeira is also believed to be the leader of an obscure invitation-only Discord chat room where the trove of documents was allegedly posted around December of last year.
People who sign agreements to be able to receive classified documents acknowledge the importance to the national security of not disclosing those documents, and we intend to send that message, how important it is to our national security.
Gloria Pazmino, KPBS News.
April is the International Month of the Military Child. It's a time to honor children of all members of the U.S. Armed Forces across the world. Here in San Diego, active duty and retired military members helped run a field day boot camp for students at Hancock Elementary. The school near Tierra Santa has almost 600 children. 98% of them have at least one active military parent. The boot camp included crew members from the USS Pearl Harbor, and many of them grew up as military kids themselves.
All of them are saying, hey, are you in the military? And hey, my mom or dad is in the military, and telling me that their parents dress up the same for work and put their hair in a bun, and how they've been gone a lot and their parents are always on work trips.
Today's boot camp wrapped up Spirit Week at Hancock Elementary, honoring all the kids who sacrificed time with their parents, being part of a military family. Californians still considering installing rooftop solar panels will earn less for the electricity that they generate. New rules go into effect today. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says when state regulators made the rule changes in December, it sparked a rush to install new systems.
The California Public Utilities Commission ended 2 years of contentious debate in December when they approved new net energy metering rules. Solar industry officials warned those new regulations would hurt their businesses, but the rule changes actually prompted people to put solar on roofs.
The utility companies want to pay you less for what you produce.
It totally goes against California's goals for more renewable energy.
Now is the time to go solar and lock in your savings.
That install now before the rules change pitch worked. The California Solar and Storage Association's Bernadette Del Chiaro says the pitch to get a system installed under the older, more economically generous rules boosted business by more than 40%.
A lot of consumers that were previously on the fence about the, going solar jumped off that fence, and there has been a significant increase in the number of people scrambling to get in under the current existing program because, quite frankly, the savings are bigger.
Del Chiaro says the industry should stay busy through the summer, installing all the solar systems that had an agreement signed before the deadline. But once the backlog is cleared, she expects solar installations to slow significantly. California regulators decided against a draconian flat fee proposal for solar users, something opponents called a solar tax, but they approved cutting how much utilities credit customers for electricity generated on rooftops and sold back to the grid.
They cut the value of the credit, the value on your bill that you get for every electron you send back to the grid on a sunny day. They cut that by about 75%.
Essentially, it means residents will have to wait longer to recover the upfront investment they made on a solar system. That can range from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. The rule change caps a fight that generated unprecedented interest in proceedings at the California Public Utilities Commission. The Solar Rights Alliance's Dave Rosenfeld says hundreds of local governments and public officials spoke out against the rule changes, and he says there were more than 170,000 public comments.
Overwhelmingly, like 95% of the public comments that went in were saying, don't do it, and they did it anyway.
The decision didn't sit well with the San Diego-based group, the Protect Our Communities Foundation. They worked with the Center for Biological Diversity and the Environmental Working Group to challenge the ruling. They argued in a legal petition that the CPUC did not follow state law. Attorney Aaron Stanton says petitioners have waited more than 60 days since filing their objection, and they could ask for a judicial review.
Further legal action is an option, but again, we're still focused on just trying to get the commission to change its mind.
The petition points out that state law requires the CPUC to enact rules that encourage solar adoption, make rooftop solar accessible to low-income residents, and include all of solar's benefits in their calculations. The petition argues the commission failed on all three counts. The Protect Our Communities Foundation's Bill Powers says that's disappointing, but not unexpected.
The political dynamics are quite meshed in all of this. And so it's really about in my opinion, the scales of regulation being out of balance, meaning the utilities have gained almost total control of the process.
Powers is not sold on the Commission's management of the state solar rules, but he remains bullish on the technology's potential. He says solar can help California meet clean energy and climate goals aimed at decarbonizing the state's economy.
It's remarkably autonomous. It just does its thing. There are no moving parts, and it contributes to climate action. It puts generation exactly where you need it to relieve congestion on the transmission and distribution system.
Powers hopes the commission makes changes that comply with state law. Meanwhile, industry observers worry the new rules will slow California's nation-leading adoption rate for rooftop solar. They fear a bust after the current boom. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
California's drought situation is continuing to improve. According to the U.S. Drought Monitor's latest update, more than 91% of the state is drought-free. Currently, only parts of southeastern and far northern California are classified as being in moderate drought or abnormally high. To put that in perspective, about 740,000 people live in those areas. And just a month ago, those labels applied to places where 5 million Californians live.
Well, I can say I'm loving these weather headlines. Dry and warmer throughout the weekend. Now, we do have a little cool down for early next week, but not to worry. We're going to start to gradually warm again through the middle and late half of next week. So overall, not doing too shabby. The historical average rainfall, though, for San Diego, if we zoom in on April, is just over 1/2 inch, and we don't really have to deal with too much rain as we're heading throughout this weekend as well, even through next week. Now, looking ahead tonight, we're dropping down to a low of 52. Now, we are picking up some low clouds, some fog that may reduce visibility late tonight into early tomorrow, but around the area, we are going to be dropping down to the upper 40s, low 50s, San Diego 52, Oceanside 48, Borrego Springs 53, but then we are skyrocketing there. By tomorrow, we'll be rising to the mid-80s in the high deserts in Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna 50, San Diego 65, and Oceanside 64. Now for Sunday, we're going to keep all of this nice, dry, warm weather going. High pressure, large and in charge. Very warm across the desert Southwest through Las Vegas and Phoenix, but even nice still across Southern California. Along the coast, your 5-day outlook, plenty of sunshine, nothing to really talk about except temperatures very nice in the mid-60s through the beginning of the week. We do take a slight dip along the coast, but overall not too bad. 63 for the high by Tuesday, 64 Wednesday. Now, as we travel more inland, that's where temperatures are going to be sitting in the 70s throughout the weekend. We do start to cool down a few degrees Tuesday and Wednesday, but like I said, we do have another warm up on the way later next week. As we head up towards the mountains, highs are going to be in the upper 40s, low 50s, staying pretty steady throughout the week. Just a slight dip Tuesday and Wednesday, but plenty of sunshine, not doing too shabby at all. And in the deserts, flirting with 90 by Sunday, and we start to cool down a little bit towards the beginning of the week down to the upper 70s, feeling comfortable with mostly sunny skies. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, the man suspected of leaking highly classified government documents is charged under the Espionage Act. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
San Diego has a new opera venue, 7-Eleven. Staff say that they play the music to drive away homeless people. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson visited some of the convenience stores to hear for herself.
The speaker is outside the 7-Eleven. A man sleeps a few feet away. I'm recording what I'm seeing and hearing on my iPhone when I notice him wake up. I'm curious how he feels about it.
Does that music bother you? No?
John Everson studies the effect of music on the brain. He says music can be very beneficial if it's your choice to listen.
Or you're deciding which music to listen to and how loud to listen to it and when to turn it off, right? When you take that away, I think, things change very dramatically. Right?
Everson says unwanted background noise raises stress levels. And the less money you make, the harder it is to find quiet spaces.
You almost need to pay more to buy more silence.
I asked Joey Rubio about it. He used to be homeless and now works as a program supervisor at a detox center. But Rubio doesn't really want to talk about the opera music. There are other needs that feel much more urgent to him, like understanding why people are sleeping there and where else they could go.
We need more beds, That's what it all comes down to. You can't just send somebody with mental health right back out to the streets and expect them to get right.
Music might not be enough to keep the thousands of San Diegans experiencing homelessness away from places like 7-Eleven that have accessible bathrooms and shade. Even opera. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
The days of camping out for free shows at the Rady Shell are over. Starting today, the Port of San Diego is banning people from bringing lawn chairs, coolers, and tables to the street before and during events at the outdoor venue. Harbor police have the right to issue citations to anyone violating the law. The port says it's an issue of safety because of people blocking the sidewalk. Baseball games are moving faster this year, and that means less time to sell a big moneymaker. SDSU's Mira Kopik tells us how teams are trying to regain lost revenue in the Friday Business Report.
4 teams this year have already made a decision to extend sales into the 8th inning, through the end of the 8th inning. Even the San Diego Padres at the beginning of the season extended beer sales, maybe in anticipation to some of the rules changes, to the first out of the 8th inning as opposed to the end of the 7th. Now, what's interesting is that some players have come out against some of the policy changes saying, look, it's common sense. And really, if we think about the well-being of fans, we should actually maybe cut off sales at the end of the 6th inning. Now, that's likely not going to occur, but certainly it's going to be one of those conversations that are going to take place. In fact, the general manager of the Milwaukee Brewers said, look, this move to the bottom of the 8th is an experiment. If we see that for fan safety, it creates problems, we're going to go back to the 7th inning. So I think it's a very flexible thing, and ball clubs are trying to figure out, well, how do I make up the loss in concessions because the games are 30 minutes shorter, and we'll see how the season tracks.
Thousands of people from all over the world are headed to California for one of the biggest music festivals of the year. Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival kicks off today with concerts planned for the next 2 weekends. Some showed up a day early to set up camp. Big names are expected to headline Coachella this year, including artists like Bad Bunny, Frank Ocean, and Blackpink. The festival wraps up on April 23rd, and you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.